5. Before you go to get on your report, I think you should go ahead and formally open the meeting, even though you don't have a forum.
Okay.
Open the meeting, call the roll, or say that there is not a quorum at this time. We'll, as we establish a quorum, we'll put that, we'll make sure that's on the record, and then we can move forward.
That's okay. Well, let's open the meeting of the Finance New Orleans Board of Trustees meeting, August 31st, 2022. We'll go to a roll call by Ms. Elizabeth Townsend.
Chair Edgar Chase IV.
Present.
Vice Chair Andronika Morris. Secretary Treasurer G. Wade Wooten.
Present.
Board Member Giselle Johnson Banks. Board Member Charles Brown. Board Member Stephen Smith. Board Member Hunter Thomas.
Here.
We currently do not have a quorum.
Okay, let's move to item 7 as we will wait and get our quorum.
That's the wrong one. I'm sorry.
What we'll be moving to is the executive management report.
I just shared a copy of the executive management report with you, hard copy, and I was just gonna put up on the screen. I sent her the wrong report. So she's gonna put the right one up in a moment. But I'll just start on a few news items and highlights as it relates to our.
And actually, let me pause you again. Eamon, I'll let the record reflect, we do have a quorum. Ms. Giselle Banks is present, so I think we're gonna stop that and go back to the original agenda. Seeing no old business, we'll move to item number 3, consent agenda items. Need approval of the July 25th, 2022 Board of Trustee meeting minutes. Everyone had a second to review them. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And second, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved. There's no new business. We'll move on to item number 5, Finance and Investment Committee report.
I will take that. Good afternoon, board. We did not have a finance and investments committee meeting, so this would be present. So starting with the market report, inflation continues to be on the forefront. Some signs of peaking. Headline CPI for July was 8.5. That was below expectations of 8.7. Prior was 9.1. So moving in the right direction. That was driven by lower fuel and energy prices. If you look at core inflation, which takes out food and energy, that was 5.9 versus a forecast of 6.1. What drove that lower was used cars. There's still a lot of inflationary pressures on the housing market, as well as rent prices, as well as services area, which is driving up. But despite this increase, the Fed is still signaling that they're not done with their increases. They've been increasing over the past few FOMC meetings. And so we can probably expect to see that continue throughout the year. I think they feel as though that still the market hasn't really adjusted to the increases just yet, and looking at consumer spending numbers as well as the unemployment numbers, so, which is still strong. The labor market added 528,000 jobs in July. The unemployment rate held flat at 3.5 for the fifth straight month. So still strong in that area. Bond rates over the past month were lower during the month. 10-year treasury was down 7 basis points. Yield curve across the board was down. And mortgage rates and mortgage-backed securities were down. Locally, the unemployment rate in Orleans Parish actually went up. Last reading, which is the month of June, it went up to 6.5. And the prior month it was 5.5. So moving a different direction from moving into the financial status report. So total revenues as of July year to date, we're at 182,000 versus a budget of 469,000. Shortfall there is on the expense side, expenses year to date is 900,000 to a budget of 3. So favorable across the board. 400. So that makes up. Next page is the 13-month trending. So we were a little lower in July on the revenue side. On the expenses, we were pretty flat month over month. And average, and that was just driven by salaries. Next page is our year balance sheet. Nothing to report here as the activity. So nothing here. Next page, pathways portfolio. No activity here, so we have our revenues, which is our investment income. Finally, we have our cash and cash equivalents. We're 8.7 versus question.
One quick one, we probably talked about it on the previous, that the little 283,000 difference on the multifamily program. That's just because we're looking for those programs to come online.
Yeah, so the budgeted number, is based on so many ballots per year. So what we know is when these deals don't close every month, right? So they happen at different times of the year. So we can have one pilot close. Right. Size of the deal. So we have budgeted 5 pilots. And close 2, 3. So based on our average close on the pilots, if it's within that average that we put in the budget, we get the 2 more pilots for sure.
And we do have projects that are active in the pipeline. The biggest challenge has been the market overall. That's what's held up a lot of these deals. So construction costs going up, insurance and the interest going up. Those 3 categories are primarily impacting our ability to close faster. These projects are still active. They're not falling off the pipeline at all. I mean, some do, some come to us, but the good ones, they stick. They just might take a little longer than we like.
I don't want to steal too much of Kelly's thunder, but we do have 3 projects that just hit underway. to this.
Yeah, no, it's more so, and I understand the time, when that is just getting a clear picture of, we expect hopefully each year 425, or will that number grow? Is that our average number? of 5 a year?
Yeah,
Possible.
so we expect to scale up a little bit,
Right.
but keep in mind, we get these pilots on a return basis every year. So
Right. Okay.
these pilots that we closed in the prior years, we're gonna receive revenue.
And then that allowance for doubtful accounts, that's the city grant.
Yes, with this, so keep in mind, this is the report on the operating, that's it. I would like to get to a point where we can have a report listed. The budget in terms of what's approved.
I understand, but I'm looking through the full report, so I have questions on that.
I think the other thing I know here for the board, we did develop a long-term financial advisors. So budget numbers that Byron is talking about, the assumptions per year, we mapped that out with the financial advisor over a 10, 15-year horizon. So we know what it looks like when we scale up over 5 years, 10 years, if we're doing X amount of production per year. So with multifamily, that number could be anywhere from 5 to 10. And it's pretty good compared to other agencies out there. But those deals may be pilots, they may be bonds and pilots. There's some other incentives that we're building in, like sales tax exemptions we're working on, credit enhancements, other types of things we can offer to the projects. So we may have 5 to 10 deals that all look different. Some may be pilot only, some may be other elements. So that revenue number may be a little hard to pin down every year, but the number of transactions that we can bring to the platform, we're hoping to get to a consistent number of somewhere between 5 and 10 deals a year.
Any other questions on the finance and investment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, Programs Committee Report.
Afternoon, everybody. Apologies, I'm sorry for my tardiness. They registered, I'm here.
Did you, I didn't hear you. Did you, announce it?
Well, we will let the record reflect that Vice Chair Morris is here, so.
And we had a forum, so we love you.
We
So.
still have a forum.
Oh, we have a forum. That's right, that's right.
You made us really good.
No, oh, that's right, I'm sorry. So good afternoon, everybody. We did not have a programs committee meeting. I'm looking at Damon this month. Okay. We unfortunately we did not I was traveling, and so we weren't able to reschedule a meeting, and we had hoped to try to have it we had hoped that it would be able to be had right before the board meeting that got canceled. And so that did not work. But we do have for y'all's review and the July 2022 Programs Committee report and the July 2022 Active Sustainable Development Report. There's been not a lot of significant updates. I'm looking at the staff again since we last met. You've heard some of the conversation around the financial impacts it relates to the programs that we are really excited about and we really want to see grow and expand over the next few years. And those are the big pieces. I do want to remind everybody that we did discuss really digging in around the community support fund. That's something that we're going to be exploring over the next couple of months. The staff is going to be looking at that, especially as the city council has taken the extraordinary step of preventing Entergy from disconnecting people's utilities for non-payment while we're having this extreme price spike. That it means that once that ends, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to need utility assistance. That doesn't mean, however, that they meet our criteria. And so the staff is gonna have to look at that and think about how we can make that alignment and then bring some recommendations to either make changes to the programs or end it. And so those are the big highlights that I wanted to make sure that we shared. We're really excited about the sustainable developer pipeline. I must tell you, as someone who does this for a living, the Finance Authority is one of the bright spots in the development work because it's pretty darn bleak out there when it comes to bringing on affordable housing at scale that we desperately need in the city. The other agencies are struggling with this, and FNO is walking a fine line by providing what developers want and need and scaling that up. It's just going to get harder, unfortunately, with the issues around insurance. And that is something that the staff is very well aware of and is also working on addressing. And the answer is the direction that we're being taken in by our executive director, looking at green investments. That's how you bring insurance down. That's how you bring utility costs down. That's how we make these homes resilient and truly sustainable for the long term. And so the Finance Authority is leading the way on that. So really exciting, really good. Not perfect, but we're not gonna let perfect be the enemy of good. That is all I have to say. That's slightly different from last month's report. I shared everybody that we weren't able to meet this month due to my travel and some other scheduling issues. So unless we have any questions or comments, and I don't think we have anything to approve for, no,
Just
Yeah.
a discussion.
just discussion only. That's what I thought. I was skimming through it. When Nas sent me the agenda this morning, I managed to skim it. But I wanted to make sure that I hadn't missed anything. And yeah, that's it for us, unless anybody else has any questions, comments. Giselle, if there's anything that you want to add. Okay, then we will move past program.
Well, for the board, a few comments.
Oh, and staff, I'm sorry.
Related to where, while we are where we are with our program. So as it relates to single family, interest costs going up is affecting us in a few ways. As you know, we haven't been in the tax exempt bond market for a number of years, and we're working on a path to get back there. So we've been using the taxable market or the TBA market. And as interest rates are going up, the one competitive advantage we do have in that market, down payment assistance, is starting to evaporate. So as interest rates go up and we try to add premium to already higher interest rates, that makes the product less attractive. It made sense when the rates were lower. So that's one of the things that's preventing us from moving volume right now. And then the other is the credit score requirements. New Orleans is a 600 to 660 market, and we can't do much below 660.
Right.
So a big part of this bond issue, which I'll talk about in a moment, the bond issue is meant to open up access so that we can do below 660, and we should see the volume start to rise again. And we have a renewed focus on existing homeowners. So that's going to be a big target population for us coming out of the gate, the existing homeowner population, because they're more ready to make improvements to the home. They're more ready to do the resilience aspects as well. So Kelly and the programs team, they're getting geared up so that we can roll out our marketing campaign, but also loosen up the restrictions with some of this capital that we're trying to bring in so that we can be more effective with our community investment.
Good question. Speaking of historically, you would see like a credit rating is always a problem, right? As I recall, since once the issue was, it was like a blend, like there was a certain percentage.
It can't all be below subprime. as you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming those sorts of rules are still in place that you can blend. And the idea is you're trying to open it up to a wider community.
It's driven by the servicer. So right now, so every year the servicer is changing the
Change the rules,
guidelines.
that's what I was wondering.
Post-recession,
Yeah.
post-housing crisis,
Right.
and post-Katrina,
Right.
for that matter, they changed the rules on this. So for a while, Kelly, I think it was every loan had to be 660 with the exception of maybe 5. I don't know what we're gonna do with five.
Right, exactly, when
Five
the
mortgages
market,
for a whole city.
right,
So we asked them, well, what can we do to open up this marketplace and make you more comfortable? And of course, it's credit enhancement from us.
Right.
So they want us to put our balance sheet on the table, which is part of what we do. And we just need the capital to do it comfortably.
and I will say, Wade, one thing about the credit scores is part of the conundrum around this, it's not really a good indicator, right? It's, you know, it's what we've accepted, it's what we settled on,
Right.
it's not the point around it. And there are things, when you look at you mentioned the 2008 financial crisis, low to moderate income folks with lower credit scores were not the problem. It was people with bad credit scores, but they also had higher incomes. They were also not properly educated, trained, and these were exotic products that would frankly have not been offered to the average Black person, much less the average New Orleanian. And they were buying second homes, they were buying investment properties, they were buying houses way really out of their reach. And they were being preyed upon, not to just put it all on those folks, they were being preyed upon because the banks were loosening up the restrictions so that they could make all this money and everybody thought that, you know, it kept keep going up. And what the team is talking about here is something that's really needed. We've got to figure out a way to stabilize these homeowners because it's going to take the rest of the market down if you can't help people who own their own home already, get their insurance rate down, get their utility rates down, they're going to lose their houses. And that's just going to keep pulling on us, especially when we actually have the technology. So it was something that the rehab program is something that we desperately need, and been a little disappointed that the servicer hasn't been interested in doing it, and the team has come up with a way of working around it. So while yes, I think this is going to be a portfolio that has a significant number of subprime, the way they're going to manage it is going to be something that we could bet the farm on. And we're not betting the whole farm. We're not betting the whole farm, but it is one of the reasons why I'm excited to work with this team, to see this innovation, this commitment to really to the betterment of the city and Finance New Orleans. And over the history of FNO has Finance New Orleans has played this role many times. So I'm glad that we're coming back to ourselves.
Just two follow-up questions. One was, do they still have the home buyer training?
Oh, yeah.
Is it available?
It's available on
Oh,
our
yeah,
website.
it's required.
That's okay. That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, they're
So
not gonna
first-time home
that-
buyers,
yeah,
first-time home buyers.
That's
Okay.
not, that's one of the reasons why you didn't see low to moderate income folks. And it's personally, I would like us to get to the place, and I've talked to some of our lending friends about this. We need to stop ghettoizing home buyer education. It needs to be required for everybody because the people who got into those adjustable rate mortgages and loans that were just outside of their affordability, they might have still done it if they had gone to home buyer education, but a lot of them would have if they knew better, if they had been given this information. And what we've done is we've told poor people they have to get all of this training, when the fact of the matter is the average American doesn't know jack shit about owning a house.
Right.
You know, they really, even if they grew up in a house that their parents owned, they don't know anything about no one's teaching anybody that anymore, right? And so everybody really should go through it and not just learn it and think that, oh, let's just go file bankruptcy 6 times to discharge your debt. Because that's how we gotta do it. We gotta do this. So and Damon and his team, and this is something I'm not as excited about, but they're finding all of these different ways to do home buyer education. Look, you like, who is that over there? She's being so complimentary. I had to throw a little shade to it, so you know it was me. Behind the mask and everything.
That's a good example of friction in the market where we're trying to use technology to solve some of these issues, but we still need the people on the ground to help move the system. So we're just trying to find the right sweet spot to where we can deliver the home buyer education, because people are coming to us saying, I don't mind doing it. Can I do it online? Can I do it from my phone? So we wanted to make sure everybody had that option, but also
We need to learn.
we don't want to compromise the integrity of what it means. So we, even with having online training, we still require the home buyer to spend some time in person with the contracted home buyer educator. There's still some work to be done in this space.
And how much is the bond issue? We,
15.
And how long has it been since we did a bond issuance?
Well, the bonds that we issue.
Has it been this century?
No, yeah, I mean. I've
Yeah.
been on- yeah.
Well, not that
I've been around.
long.
Yeah.
No, it's been like 7 years.
yeah.
Okay, so that's not too bad.
I don't know.
I thought y'all were going on like it was the
I mean, but
nineties.
it was, I mean, from like, I've been here since 95 and.
Right,
And they
um,
were humming on all cylinders for.
But
Yeah,
it should be
long
getting
time.
more attractive right now, the bond
Taxes and
market.
bond- it
Yeah,
is.
Taxes and bond
It
market
is.
more attractive, okay.
it definitely is. We have to get our volume up to get back into the market. So the magic number is 150 mortgages a year,
Mhm.
which is a fraction of what we used to do.
Right.
That's the threshold we have to meet in order to get back into the taxes and bond.
And you gotta stabilize the rest of the market. That's why the green mortgage program is gonna be so helpful too, because it'll also help increase, if we can cool down the market, like, we're heading for another, correction is the most generous term. We are heading for another bubble pop if we're not careful, and we can cool it down, make it so that people can buy homes, stabilize the wealth that they've already built, without just another crash. But that requires some intervention.
We need some down payment assistance funding too. If I have any ideas or know of any sources where we could supplement our first mortgages, that'll also help move the needle. We can offer people 5–10% and incentivize them to make these investments with the mortgage. That's another way we can attack the problem.
Make sure you talk to Trinica, because we won't be able to do all of them, but we might be able to do a small pilot with y'all. Yep.
So 25 million, but how many mortgages would that float?
Well,
Ballpark.
the 25 million is going to partly go to multifamily, and then some is going to go to single family. But this initial bond issue is meant to put more cash on our books so that we can open up market access.
Okay.
So then we can go to the US Bank and say, we got a little more cash on our books to support the FHA mortgages in the first place. So we have to back up federally backed mortgages. And that's a fairly risk averse investment for us. But it's just that we have to put this capital on the table in order to enable our volume to go up. So this first bond issue is 25 million, up to 25 million that we've been talking to the market about, is expressly meant to boost our balance sheet. And we can support more multifamily deals and more single family mortgages with that balance sheet.
But those mortgages come out, I mean, or are they, is it rental?
So
Those.
those are the combination. Most of the funding is earmarked for multifamily, just because the credit requirements are higher. But single family, I think the number is about 5% that US Bank and Eustis, our servicers, are requiring us to put up. But that may not be in the form of direct cash. It may just be an acceptance of our balance sheet or a letter of credit from us, where it doesn't outline specific amount of money. But having the additional funding from the bond issue on our books will help make the case. It'll help loosen up capital from the local bank. It shouldn't take that, but that's what the requirement is right
There's no more discussion or questions on the program committee report. We'll move to the executive management report.
No.
That's it right there.
You have one?
No,
I can put it on, I think it's on mine. Oh, thank you.
Those were-
Thank you.
I'll jump right in to our executive management report. Everyone has it in front of them. The few highlights about what's going on in our marketplace. Number one is the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law by President Biden on August 16th. And within that act, there's $27 billion of funding for green banks and local governments through the EPA to invest in climate resilience projects. We are expecting upwards of $50 million as a direct investment from the National Green Bank. As you know, we've been a part of the American Green Bank Consortium for a number of years at this point, and we've been working collectively with those banks to figure out the best strategy, the best way to access this funding. There's no guarantee, but we're at the table, and we do have pole position at the table. So we're in a good position, but there's still some work to be done, and that's what the working group is doing. Basically putting together a plan to be delivered to the EPA. So this funding, this $27 billion is going to flow through the EPA. $20 billion of it is set aside for green banks. So we actually have access to the entire 27, but $20 billion is set aside specifically for green banks. So the exercise here is making sure we are considered an actual green bank so that we can access the funding. So we've been calling ourselves a green bank. We've been recognized as one. But now that there's actual money coming from the EPA, they have to determine what the qualification criteria is. So we're hoping to have some kind of influence on what that criteria is. We've done a lot of homework with the Green Bank Consortium. So more to come out there. There's the National Green Bank Conference is going to be late September in DC. So there's a lot of work that's going to happen in person at that conference to advance this agenda. So I'll keep you updated as more comes. But this, not to talk about it like it's too good to be true, but this is a shot in the arm for communities around the country, this funding, and it's expected to flow. So we just got to make sure we get our fair share of it. And this could provide a boost to us. This could provide a leap to the organization. And we're hoping that a lot of it can go towards housing too. We know most of it is going to have to be set aside for our infrastructure arm. A lot of it is going to be allocated for housing because that's the value that we brought to that Green Bank Consortium, is our understanding of housing and how to merge that with sustainability.
And housing is infrastructure, last time I checked.
Amen.
So quick question, Damon. When they're thinking about, we're talking about the infrastructure, our infrastructure piece. How are we, I know, oh God, Ms. Baptiste is not with us anymore.
Sure.
And I know y'all have been working on, some interesting products and things like that. Can we get a recap? Maybe after y'all meet in September about what that could look like?
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
No problem. Actually, we've that particular fund has been a work in progress.
That's what, I
And so
remember that part.
We've done a lot to build the pipeline up till now. So the next step is actually formally organizing it. And we have some consultants at the table working with us right now to develop a plan of action alongside the work we're doing with the National Green Bank or the Green Bank Consortium. So we'll have more information next month to come back with a plan of attack.
Perfect.
Because now is the time. And that actually leads to the next point, which is we were approved for a $600,000 grant from the city of New Orleans, which was funded by a GEO bond issue. And that funding is dedicated to us launching our infrastructure fund, which we're calling the Resilient New Orleans Infrastructure Fund. The city is also providing us with a set of buildings so that we can test out our financial products and programs. And we're also working with some of the other local agencies on test projects as well. So this is a big start for us. The city is also working to recognize us in their climate action plan, which they have not officially released yet. But we're identified as the city solution for green financing in the city, and that's a big deal. So that's an empowerment that we're working on with legal through a CEA. Similar to what we've done on the housing side. So we'll have another CEA that empowers us to do the infrastructure financing in the city.
Well, you mentioned the testing of the buildings. So you're talking about retrofitting, microgrids.
Yeah, there's a spectrum of opportunity here. Some buildings may be standalone, or groups of buildings may be standalone, or they may be connected to a larger microgrid. So we've asked one of our consultants that we sourced a few years ago, and we're ready to activate them. We asked them to give us a game plan for microgrids, because there's a lot of funding out there.
Mhm.
And that request has come back to us from other agencies and other private developers in the community. They want to build microgrids using groups of buildings.
Yep.
And some will be islands, the larger buildings, they'll be able to do their own microgrid. But yes, the answer is, that is the future. That's what a lot of the other green banks are working on. And we're actually getting support from the other green banks on these initial projects. to settle that.
I know the city, there's a working group that the city is putting together on there's some technical support around it. And I think they mentioned you all inside. I'll make sure that they are looped in, because you know, sometimes the city is a big.
Yeah.
This is the biggest little city ever, but City Hall can be quite, those floors, man, they're like, you know, hard and fast lines of demarcation.
Yeah.
Because you're not talking with like Austin Feldbaum and.
We are.
Okay, so then Austin's good at compartmentalizing and connecting.
They've been keeping us in touch on the hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah.
They've been pretty good, actually.
Okay, yeah, they've got a consultant in that they're working with on getting some additional funding for some things. And so, yeah, he may have mentioned it, and I think I remember him mentioning Finance New Orleans. And I may have felt like it didn't fully represent this.
I understand.
Yeah, it was offhandedly, and I was like, oh, it's more than that.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think that's the opportunity here, is to better explain that through the CEA. We've used the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan as our talking piece, and that's helped. And, you know, the city, some of the departments, like to your point, different floors, it's taking us a while to warm them up to this concept, but they see the value in it. So, ball's in our court to some extent. The last thing I'll say about the Resilience Fund is Byron and I have been having a lot of conversations with different investors, different funders. And one thing that's fairly clear so far is that finance authority, the official entity, is going to end up with maybe a couple of subsidiaries, because the housing infrastructure needs to be separated for a variety of reasons. So those are some of the considerations we're going to bring back to you as it relates to starting up this infrastructure fund, which is, you know, we've already managed it in that way, but in terms of the legal separation of our activities, there may need to be some attention spent there. Just to one, keep us clean, but also so we don't confuse the market. When we go out talking to investors, they usually either on one side of that equation. If we start talking about the other side, then they do.
Especially when they want to look at your financials and you're like showing, oh, this is, don't ignore that. That's this thing that you don't care about.
Yeah.
And it's on our, they're like, just show them the subsidiary that they need, the set of financials that they're gonna be playing in.
And it may not be that we need another set of books, right? Mine is just.
Not a set of books. It's, yeah, we're not gangsters here.
It's more for branding than it sounds like. But here's my question, is it branding, which is relatively straightforward, you know, or is it something that you have to get city council approval?
Well, the city,
I doubt it.
no, we don't. The city's gonna do a CEA to empower us. Now, I talked about the EPA earlier. The EPA may come out with a rule, and we've already heard some rumors that they may want you to keep this infrastructure fund separate from any other kind of fund. So it may even be a federal requirement that we just don't know about yet. And that's what the team is trying to position ourselves for. But either way, just as a best practice.
Yeah.
This is a different approach.
We already have another subsidiary.
Yeah, we've done this
There are one or
before. Yeah, we've done this
two.
Yeah,
before.
we have.
And I don't think we had to get city halls approval to create those.
Yeah, I think it's.
That would be a lot.
We have to approve that.
This
Yeah,
board,
yeah. We have to approve it.
More to come there. We'll provide an update as we get more back from our consultants.
And last question, there are two community initiatives that I don't know if Finance New Orleans would, y'all can't be everything to everybody. But the community solar program, has anybody talked to y'all about possibly helping to underwrite those kinds of investments?
Yes. the city-
Go ahead.
the city.
And then the community lighthouse program.
Yes.
Okay, good, good.
We have to be in office too. And that's one of the groups I was mentioning, private developers are approaching this.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, the act also affects renewable energy credits. So it's supposed to be more lucrative to do these projects moving forward. Just like the tax credits enable the housing side.
Right.
The tax credits are supposed to be stronger now, so that it enables more renewable energy projects, more sustainability. So,
And I know y'all have met with our friends in the climate justice piece, but I think we need to circle back around and make sure that they, because they can be incredibly helpful with the advocacy at the federal level.
okay,
You know, I know you think, I appreciate you taking that meeting, I feel like it was last year, with the Alliance for Affordable Energy and the Energy Futures New Orleans School, and Taproot Earth, Colette Pichon Battle has been, you know, said she wants to meet with you as the only green bank in the state.
okay.
And we'll just, I'll make sure I make those introductions, because they hold a lot of sway. When it comes to, you know, when we're finally moving on climate change issues at a federal level and having y'all explain the technical pieces so that they can move and get the impact that they want is, I think, the piece that's missing, right? From everybody really seeing this benefit. Because you hear people muttering, saying, well, you know, maybe this is not going to be as helpful as we think it could be. And it's a lot of those folks just don't understand the technical aspect, right? How do you make this real, these investments actually real? And helping the advocates understand that is, I think, a role that y'all can play.
Okay. I love to connect with them because you see the last bullet point on this page. There's going to be some work that we have to do.
Well, we can't do anything about that. Although I don't know why they did anything. We just find out last week that the city wasn't actually following the resolution and they were investigating.
Yeah, what, and I think it's, so let me, before I skip ahead to it.
Okay.
The next thing on the list is the $25 million community impact bond that we announced in June. We've been having a number of conversations with different banks and funders. People are expressing interest. The missing ingredient right now is the underlying credit, which of course we're trying to build up our underlying credit.
Right.
So that's, you know, that's a little frustrating discussing it with the market because we've asked them for solutions to help us boost our credit, to help get our credit jump started. So some have come back with some really good solutions. We're having some promising conversations. We'll keep you updated, but I just wanted to add that to the list to let you know we're still working on it. It's a big part of our funding equation moving forward because we expect that funding to move faster than the federal funding. And that will allow us to get these programs going sooner than later. So it may not be our long-term solution. The National Green Bank is more of a long-term solution, but this impact bond issue is meant for us to get some private capital in the door today, boost our balance sheet so we can start moving some deals. Single family and multifamily. We're also expecting the city is considering us for a $10 million offer request that we made a couple of months ago. The deadline seems to be evolving, but we're going to keep an eye on it. And you know, we're hearing good things about the way the funding is being allocated towards housing. So we've done all that we can to be included in that number. We've sent that information and made our case for receiving that type of capital, but it will go directly toward credit enhancement for our multifamily program. So it seems to be some
competitors for us.
It's not about that.
It wasn't do it at all. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it's,
well.
fair enough. I was like, okay.
There are
Take an interest in an issue
Yeah.
and, yeah,
there's more requesting than there's funding.
right.
There's a lot more, a lot of hands, you know, trying to get access to those dollars for good projects, and we're one of the competing opportunities.
Yeah.
So if it comes in, great. If not, it doesn't destroy everything, but it will certainly be a boost to what we're doing. And lastly, I just want to point out that the State Bond Commission recently delayed a $39 million deal due to the city's stance on abortion. And if you recall, a few months ago, there was a different reason why they held up the deal. So this is just something we got to fight through.
Right.
And also another question that we've been having to answer with investors, and they're asking us directly, what's going on with the Bond Commission? Some investors have actually even declined to respond to our RFI because of our state's position on some of these policies. So it's an issue, but that's what y'all pay the staff to do, to figure out ways around it. So we're going to continue to fight through it. I wanted to bring that to your attention, especially as we're trying to go out with our own which is gonna be unique. It's gonna be something different, something that the city or the state hasn't seen before as it relates to impact bonds. So we're gearing up to deal with it, but just something to put on your radar. And then lastly, just a few highlights about the roadmap. I mentioned the Resilient Innovation Fund. We want to get our CEA with the city done fairly quickly. There's a timeline to spend that grant money that the city is extending to us for the Resilient Infrastructure Fund. So we expect it to happen sooner than later, because there's a GO bond there tied to that fund. And then also, we're still trying to close our first bond issue through the Sustainable Developer Program. We have it listed here as the Christopher Park deal, but there may be other deals that jump ahead of it because of the challenges that one project has seen. So we do have 3 deals in underwriting right now. And maybe they get closed by the end of the year, but they're probably more than likely early first quarter type deals. But that'll be good because, you know, we're seeing them in bunches, and there's some others coming behind those in the pipeline. And then the last, I'm sorry, 2 other things that we're focused on before the end of the year is providing credit enhancement for multifamily developers, DBE developers. One of the deals that's in underwriting will be our first opportunity to look at a credit enhancement transaction. So that's something we're going to put before the board. And of course, our $25 million impact bond issue. The key there is getting some underlying credit enhancement, which could come from the city. We've asked the city for it. It may come from the foundation or even a commercial bank. So we're talking to a combination of those market participants to figure out what's the best solution for us. But until we get that credit enhancement, we won't be bringing these funds. So that's where our focus is. Any questions from the board? That concludes my report.
No questions. I just want to say thank you for the report. And I hope we are in a position and we'll be able to see some of these lights, especially with the Green Bank. I did have one question because you had mentioned about being the only one in the state. Is that's exactly.
There are only 23 green banks in the country right now. Most of them are state level green banks, and we're one of the few locals.
And how hard, 23, there's 27 billion. How hard is it for a bank that's not a green bank to jump in real quick to become a green bank?
Well, that's part of the issue that we're working through at the transition team, because we can't afford the funding. So we have to create universal standards for what it means to become a green bank, propose those to the EPA. And there are cities, these are mostly going to come out of cities and states. There'll be some nonprofits, but they're mostly going to be spun out by cities and states. So many of the states that have started green banks, they don't even have staff yet. They still have boards, and many of the green banks they haven't been created. You're going to see some agencies like ours, like the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, convert to green banks. So you're going to see a combination of things happen. But to put it in perspective, the other half of who we are, the housing side, in the NALFA group, there are over 150 finance authorities that are part of NALFA. Only 23 green banks. They're going to be a few hundred green banks before it's all said and done. So,
yeah, and that's I know that yeah, they're going to be, and it's going to happen real quick. I was just thinking of how can we plan when you go to plan to give the benefit to the ones who thought about this before the 27 billion actually came into it, right? Who say, I want to do this because I'm doing this. This was forward thinking and not getting wiped out, and then it becomes a political, who you know, I got 200 green banks now. And the ones who really started this thing kind of get put to the way back if you don't have the right people talking to the right people. I don't know if you can do that, but that was just a thought. Well, and being the only one in the state at this present moment is pretty good.
Well, I'll tell you that is a challenge that we have to work through, because I mentioned earlier, there's no guarantee for us to get a piece of that 27 billion, but it helps that we're already a part of the network. Federal government has identified the Green Bank Consortium as the landing place for the National Green Bank. So we have some things working in our favor, being on the transition team. We have the national convention coming up. So we got the right FaceTime, the right exposure. the federal government ultimately is gonna make the rules.
Hmm.
The EPA is ultimately gonna decide what it means to be a green bank. So we're trying to get pushed in with the initial group. That's the focus. Certainly, there's always a risk that we get saturated with green banks all of a sudden. There's also a risk that the funding has to flow through the state. The state has been threatening to do their own green bank, which are the state green banks are going to be the hubs primarily for all of the funding. So we may have to depend on the state to get our access to the dollars. So there are a few issues at play here that we're just going to have to keep working through.
Questions? I don't have any other questions. We'll move on to. Can I skip 8 and go to 9 and 10 and then come back?
Yeah,
to
I was actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No other business. Is there any public comments?
Well, Mr. Chair, because we have to, because it's the agenda, we gotta
Oh,
adjust it.
amend it.
Just a real quick, motion to just move, item 8 to behind, item 10.
And I can make that amendment, that motion.
No,
Somebody else
so
has
moved.
to-
I'll
Thank
make
you.
a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we've, any opposed, say nay. And, so it's been approved to move agenda item, number 8 behind agenda item number 10. Moving on to agenda item number 9, there isn't any other business. Any public comments online on?
No
Right.
public comments at this time.
All right, well, we are moving on to executive session.
So need a
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? We are there.
So Chair Chase, just
Yes.
moving forward, since we have audience now, best practice just to also just announce to the audience that we're going into executive session directly. We're going to shut the recording while we go into executive session. I just didn't want it to abruptly end.
Okay, that's it. So we're going into executive session. I'm going in here.
Yeah, you can talk about that.
To the owl.
It's catch and vote.
Oh, this, okay.
Oh,
All right. So we will discontinue the live feed. And we'll come back when we come back out of executive session.
To the live feed or is it recording? Oh, so we're still on YouTube. All right.
We weren't last month, but.
We're back on YouTube. Fantastic. No, we like to tell people about the meeting, because not everybody can make it down here, so.
And we're good. So